Dear Emily Dickinson, I have always known who you are and what you do and, what you did. You are an amazing poet, and I have always known a poem or two of yours, but I hadn't known exactly how amazing you were until about 2 years ago when I spent a month researching poets during my senior year because everyone was already, in college and everything. So my English teacher and we looked up poets that we happened to like, and he loves you, Emily Dickinson, and he got me really turned on to you because we just read so much of your poetry and broke it down so much, and that's one of the things I love to do with poetry. It's just take my time with a poem and break it down and treat it with respect and care and try to tease out as much as possible from it. And that's so English major of me, but you're a poet who I love, so I, of course, will do that with you first. I also write some poetry, and I feel like my style imitates yours the most because you are very, very concise and so precise with what you say and how you want to say it. And also, I just love your use of em dashes. That's just my thing. I have learned about your life as much as possible, and I know that you were a sort of reclusive person, and you went to college and everything, but then stayed at home to write poetry. It's almost become a stereotypical poet's life, the recluse who just all they ever do is write poetry and never have human contact, even though I personally love human contact for the most part. I really love the way you express so many emotions, and it's just so internal because you spent so much time with yourself, and it seems like through your poetry at least that you really got to know yourself, which I think is such an interesting way to write poetry because a lot of the times I feel a lot of things and don't know how to get it out, and it seems like you really did. That's why your poems are some of my favorites, is because you captured human emotion so perfectly and so relatably to everyone, despite the fact that you were pretty much only writing for yourself. I think it's mind-blowing to me, and I wish I could write that way. The thing is, you have always been a part of my education. In school, we're introduced to Emily Dickinson pretty young because your language is easy to understand, and a lot of your poems have rhyme and rhythm to them, so they're easy to capture and learn about. So that's why I've always kind of known who you are. And the thing is, I've always been drawn to your poetry, even though it was only 2 years ago that I really got into your poetry. You somehow combine childlike innocence and playfulness with like that one poem about the snake slithering that was just fantastically written, and just very complex human emotions, which I know children feel and everything, but it's hard to put down into words a lot of the time. And you do that so well. Like, so well. I feel like that is the kind of writing that is just so perfect. Somehow, even though, nobody's perfect and all of that, your poetry, to me at least, is perfect. It's beautiful and concise and so direct, and it does exactly what it seems to want to do. Every poem does exactly what it seems like it was meant to do, which a lot of the time with my writing is difficult because sometimes I just pick up a pen and start writing, and I end up in a place I didn't think I would have ended up. For example, I did National Novel Writing Month, where you have to start a novel and write 50,000 words of that novel in 1 month, and I did that, and I ended up in a place where I did not realize I was going at all. But with your poetry, at least, you capture exactly what you seemed to want to capture. You seemed to have the end goal in mind when you were writing, and that's something I want to practice a lot more, which is why I'm reading a lot of you recently. And because your poems are so short, it feels like it's just a single complete thought in one poem, and that's it. Even though there are layers and complexities, it feels like a whole thought, and no more, no less. And I think that is perfect because it's easy to grasp and understand. You're such an accessible poet, which is why you are so famous and popular. And it also, with so few words, it's harder to break down exactly what you meant and tease out the layers you have within your poem, which is why it's so much fun for a reader like me who loves to do that and loves to break down poems. Like, another one of my favorite poets is W.H. Auden, and he also has many layers and everything, but he writes long poems. He writes really long poems. So it's sometimes easier to tease out what he was saying and what he was meaning because you can see the shift in the poem easier and understand how he was doing something and why he was doing it. While with you, the rhetorical devices you use, like em dashes and emjabment, all have reasons, but it's a lot harder to figure out why if it was, just in order for the poem to be read a certain way, or if it was so that a certain word could have a lot of meaning while another word doesn't have as much meaning and can flow better. It's so much fun to do that, and really it was you that made it fun for me to do that. You were the first poet that English teacher and I worked on, and it was the time of my life, really. I literally, it would be an hour of us working on a few poems and trying to truly understand them. And I know there's no true understanding of what your intent was, at least, but we can all have our own understandings of them, and I think that's also beautiful because I come with my own background and experiences that I can impose on a poem, and especially poems like yours, because they are so relatable and they're not general, they're very, very specific emotions that you convey. And I feel like I've noticed this a lot in literature. I feel like the specificity makes it so universal. That's just something I seek to do in my own writing, because it's why we write. It's to make people understand what people are going through emotionally, and that just helps so much. Just the specificity of your emotions and how specific each and every word is. That's what really drew me to you in the first place. Actually, the poem that drew me to you at the very beginning of me discovering you was this poem called I'm Nobody. I believe I've talked about this before on this channel. It's just like, I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? We can be nobody together, and so on. And then it talks about how it's not necessarily good to be so public all the time, which is such a universal concept, and it's even more relevant now than it probably was back when you were writing it, which is pretty amazing how a poem can be so not just universal, but can be so evergreen. It can last for so long. I think another poem like that, not by you, is Robert Frost's poem that everyone knows, The Road Less Traveled By. But you do it so well, which is why you are who you are, and why so many people are drawn to you the way I am drawn to you. I truly believe that what you've written is magic, and it's so powerful yet so concise, and I don't know how you do it, but I am going to continue to try to do it. Currently, though, my favorite poem by you is, and it's been my favorite poem by you probably for the last 2 years. It is Hope is the Thing with Feathers, and I just love that poem so much. I've just spent months looking at that poem and just staring at it and rereading it and rereading it and continuously getting more and more out of one poem with 2 stanzas, or 3 stanzas, that I actually wrote my own poem based on it. It's a golden shovel poem, which I don't think existed when you were alive, but yeah, I've written because of you. I've been so inspired by you, and I think your legacy is just so powerful, and God, I don't even know how to say what I want to say, but it's just, you're amazing. Your writing is just so beautiful, and I wish I could have known you, because that's the kind of writer you are. You are someone that I can relate to so much, despite being from a completely different time than you. And I hope that I can one day write like you. Not necessarily in your style, but like you in that people can understand and get more out of a poem than maybe even I was putting into it. I hope I can write in such a way that something I write has an impact on someone for the rest of their lives, like Nobody and Hope is the Thing with Feathers had with me. I thank you for writing so many poems, and so well, that everyone in America at least gets to study you and has the privilege of reading the amazing things you wrote. So thank you, Emily Dickinson. Thank you so much. Okay, so shift gears, and hello my lovely, lovely viewers. As you guys know, this is part of my 7-episode video series of open letters to people that I admire in the world. I believe this is the only not alive person who is on this esteemed list of people I admire, at least for now. And it actually took me a lot of time to come up with Emily Dickinson, because it was just really hard to think of 7 people, but it's so true. Emily Dickinson has been such a big part of my life for so long that I couldn't not make a video. So let me know in the comments down below what your favorite poem is, and I will see you tomorrow with the very last video of open letters. For now. Who knows, maybe I'll do more later. But with the last video in this 7-day series. Bye! Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the storm and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me.